Hey guys, welcome back to the Grounded Podcast. I'm Marissa.
And I'm Michelle.
And today we are going to cover healing. And I know that's a big topic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
So it's crazy because I really had envisioned in my mind how I was going to speak on this topic. But then I'm like, you know what? Instead of like it feeling like kind of scripted, I just kind of want to tell a story. But it's my life story, so it's not like a random
right,
story.
yeah.
Hypothetically putting
It's a
people in
testimony,
it.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a testimony. So let's just start right there.
Wait, can we start? I just want to say this before. What does healing mean for you?
Healing is a process
Mm.
for me. I don't think there's one way to define it because everyone heals
It's different,
differently. And I guess based on the trauma or different life experiences that we go through, we heal differently because, the effects of it determines how we heal.
Right.
So for me, it's not one single definition.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I
It's
said,
just a process
it's
in
just
general,
a process
right?
that we go through. So in my story today, that I'm going to be sharing, the healing process that I went through is just, it took a while for me to get there, and I had to start over a couple times.
Well, that's fine. I always say, like healing's not linear. It's not a straight line. It's not like boom, boom, boom. Sometimes you gonna keep going back. You're gonna go forward. It's a circle sometimes. So
no, just like our relationship with God, it's a process as well too.
right.
So healing is also a process. You can't rush it. You can't force it. You can't skip steps.
And you have to let God help you.
Really, and not only God, but people who He brings into your life as well too.
Utilizing your community.
Right, exactly. And sometimes we don't want to, or we don't see that there is a community of people there to help us. But when you realize it, and when you finally see, like, you're only here to help me, it makes the healing process a lot easier.
Yeah.
Not easier in the sense
I was not easy, just easier.
Easy,
yeah.
It's easier to the point where you feel like you're not alone through the process, that you're not doing it by yourself, and that when times do get hard, you in fact know that there's somewhere or someone
like a support system.
You can turn to, which in my opinion is a great feeling, because when you feel like you're going through something alone, it can be dark, it can be challenging. We get, like that movie that came out like a while ago, Get Out, where there's like a scene where they're like in a space.
Oh, like that dark hole, and it's like you can't get out.
I feel like people who
you can't get out.
I feel like people who are depressed, or people who are going through some kind of trauma or life experience in their lives, we all fall into that space. And I think that movie brought it to life. I mean, there's nothing.
I mean, it's a different concept, but I know what you mean.
And I don't mean it's because there's nothing spiritual in that movie.
Right, yeah.
But I like to use it as an example because I know several times in the past, when I have been going through something, and the only way that I could explain to you
was that scene.
Because literally I would be here, but my body would be.
It's like it would be like, because I used to do it, like dissociate. So like I'm here, but like I'm not here at all. Like I would lose time. I would be like, I remember there was a time like I was in a space, and I thought I was only in that space maybe a day and a half. My mom was like, you were down for like 4 days. And I was like, okay, because I think sometimes it's hard for you to even recognize that you're in that space. Because you kind of like lie to yourself, and then you're like, oh.
Time freezes, in a sense. Everything around you just stops. Not literally, because everyone else around you sees life just passing the way that it does, but for you, it literally is like time. It just literally stops.
Yeah, it's like you have
you're in a trance,
like a mask on or something, like like you're putting on like you're putting on a face,
But
but
you
like
don't
back
see,
here
yeah,
you're
you
kind
don't
of
see,
like
yeah. So it's kind of like literally an outer body experience.
sometimes,
It's
yeah.
sometimes, and because like you could think that you're saying having a whole conversation with someone, and it's your mind.
And you're not picking it up.
Yeah, but literally, and then once you maybe snap out of it, you're like,
Was
"It
I
okay?"
listening?
And it's just like you didn't say anything.
Yeah, like I didn't like
But
what
like
were
in
we
my mind,
talking
I'm like,
about?
I literally just had a whole conversation.
And I have
with
no
you.
clue what you just said. And the thing is also I think a lot of people, if they haven't experienced a moment like that, because obviously God had to help us, because that's a
Girl,
spiritual thing.
sometimes it felt so good being in that space.
Because it's not it felt good. I think it was just like not caring about anything was just kind of knowing that if you cared about something, you had to deal with it, was like I just don't want to.
And it's
But I was going to
it's like
say
escape.
right, exactly. I was going to say I think a lot of people who haven't been in that space, or who have they've been fortunate enough to not have experienced that kind of heaviness. A lot of times it's discouraging or not helpful, because they'll say like, "Oh, well, you're just sad." Like, just it's not just be happy or put a smile on your face, or think your thoughts do help, but that's not the whole thing. You know what I mean? So I do know when I was dealing with that was kind of an issue. As you know, I used to have a friend, and she was just kind of like, "Well, you're depressed. Like, are you sure? Like, do you remember me? Yeah." And it was like, I don't want you. If you're just sad, like, just say that. And I was just like, hello. Like, we didn't talk for months, because I was like,
Not
you
everybody
can see,
comprehends.
yeah. But it's also, I think the people who see you, because I think when I told you, you kind of got it, because it had been a thing I'd struggled with for years, and you had this doing the same thing. Even if you didn't say it at that time, I knew. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
when we told each other, it wasn't kind of like a what you mean. It was kind of like, okay, I
Yeah.
get it. So we're excited to hear. Well, I'm saying we, but it's me. But I hope everyone's excited to hear your story and your journey, because I know how important and dear to your heart it is, and how important it was for you to share, because I know you've been very excited to share your testimony, even though it's not the easiest. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to talk about, but the fact that you're on the other side of it, and sorry, excuse me, and you're able to talk about it, and I'm 100% sure that there are other people who have gone through similar things in one way or another, that you can help, as far as hearing you on the other side of it.
But I can tell you what
Well,
I went through.
I mean help as far as hearing the way that you got through it, and the way that you dealt with it, and things like that. Those things do help, to see that, okay, I'm not by how you said, to know that you're not by yourself in this. Like, this isn't a solitary thing that just happened to me. Like, it does happen to people, and there is a bright, they see you on the other side of it. You know what I mean? So to give that little glimmer of hope, because you have to think, if back then you saw somebody who went through the same thing that you did, and you saw like the transformation or the hope, I'm pretty sure you would have been like, okay, I can do, you know what I mean? Like, I can do this.
Yeah, if I would have known.
If you would have accepted that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think acceptance was the biggest thing for me. Whew, okay. So like I fully prepared myself to give this testimony and story, so I'm gonna try my hardest not to get emotional.
If you do, we are an open space, as we said in the beginning. We are transparent here, so.
I just don't want to get too emotional.
Girl, it's okay.
Okay.
Now, if I get emotional, I'm gonna zoom in on you a little bit more. But this is your story.
I'm gonna tell my story. And in the story, I'm going to tell you the process that I went through. I ran, then I hid, which is completely different from running. Yeah. Then I went into sickness, then a loss. And from there, when I finally realized I had nowhere to turn, I had to surrender. And it wasn't until after the surrender process is when I finally started healing. Back in 2019, I was working for my first ever like real company as a scheduling manager for a event staffing company. And I had already been there for like 5 years already now, going into 2019. And at the time, there was a manager who worked at the USC campus on site. We were a third-party vendor, so I wasn't really working for the school. I was working in partnership with the school. So I built a lot of relationships there, through my job. And one of the relationships that I built was with one of the managers that worked inside of the buildings, the housing buildings. I was working for, so I had built a relationship with one of the on-site housing managers. And at the time, he was getting ready to leave out the door and, get another better job opportunity. And he had told me casually in a conversation, when I leave, like, I want to take you wherever I go with me, just because of the relationship I built with him. He admired my work ethics and what I brought to the table. So I never thought about it, so I'm like, whatever. And months had went by and I never realized that he was gone. And one day out of the blue, I got a phone call from him telling me where he was located and he got a new job and he wanted to hire me. So he had asked me how much I got paid and wanted to like double the salary that I was making. And at the time, it was my first time really leaving a job. So it was hard for me to have that conversation with my current manager because he was a great manager. Still till this day, like I consider him as a mentor, but he's more like family now. And it was really hard having that conversation with him when I was leaving. I'm pretty sure we both were in tears. He probably won't admit it, but I'm pretty sure we were both in tears, the day that I was finally leaving. And he came to me and was just like, you have to say something to the rest of the staff. And I'm like, I don't want to. I really didn't want to. But he ended up sending out an email. I think it was an email letting everyone know that I was leaving. So my last day was like fully emotional, crying. Everybody was like making me cry, telling stories and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, come on, man, this is exactly why I didn't want to tell anybody, because I didn't really want to get emotional about it. And then a part of me too didn't really think that I've built that enough good relationships there to think that anyone would miss me when I left. But I was obviously wrong about that feeling. But
that's 5 years, girl.
Yeah, but
I know.
I had some of the craziest people that was working for me. Like I was working 12 to 18-hour days.
Yeah, and I'm like, why are you answering the phone? It's
well, it was
in the morning.
Yeah, I know, but it was literally my job to have to answer because I was a scheduling manager. Right. So it's like it was literally like people would call off, and we were a 24-hour service company. So around the clock, we always had somebody on the clock. So if the managers, supervisors, team members called off, like I was the first call that they were making. And, at some point in there, I'm like,
I can't do this.
I can't. Literally, I'd be out, back in those days, like partying in the club, and literally my phone's ringing like, hey, we're short staffed. And I'm like, I'm low-key drunk right now. What do you want me to do?
I have to leave and be like, I don't have anybody to cover, so I have to go. I'm like, hello? Hello? Are we in the car going somewhere? Are we going to dinner? Are we in line?
Yeah, it was crazy. We learn from every experience that we go through, so that's all I'm going to say about that. But no, going back to, so he called me out of the blue telling me he wanted me to come on board with him in this new company as an operations manager. And at first I wasn't really sure about it because I'm like, I don't know what this entails. Like, like,
what is that?
What am I supposed to be doing? Like, I know that I was teachable. That was like the one thing that I knew about me is that I was teachable. So when you teach me something, I pick it up really quickly and I just take it and I go. So, but outside of that, I'm like, dang, I don't want to fail. Like, cause I refuse to fail. Like it's not in me to fail. So if I never want to put myself in a position where I didn't know what I was doing because I never wanted to fail.
But at the time, my relationship with God wasn't the greatest. Like, it was there, but it wasn't there. So, and this person I was going to work for as well too, come to find out, like, he was a pastor as well. And I just
Yeah.
you know so I accepted the offer. I left and I went to this new job. It was paying me really well. Like, to be only like 24, 25 years old, almost making six figures, like, you really don't know how to manage your money. So, but at the time, like, I was in a relationship, so I knew that we wanted more. So I did save a lot of my money, but also, like, I spent a lot of it as well too, because I was just, making ridiculous amount of money. And everything seemed to be going well at the job, with this new manager that I have, that I had a personal relationship with. So I didn't think, like, anything bad would come of it.
But you were going to his church too at the time too, right?
Not every Sunday, but I went and I visited a couple times, and that was that. But to me, everything was fine, until I started noticing things that were questionable, seeing things that I'm just like, is this really happening right now? After a year into it is when I really started noticing the changes and everything. Then I started noticing that my health started declining as well too, like, unexplainably. Like, I don't know, I go to every doctor you could possibly imagine. I saw every specialist literally that you can imagine, and then none of them could figure out what was going on with me, but you could see that something was wrong. I felt something was wrong. I kept getting depressed each time I went to the doctor, and even days I just didn't even want to go because I just felt like they weren't going to give me answers that I needed. And they would tell me, oh, you have lupus, and then retest again and you don't have it. Then they'd go back and tell me I have something else.
Bro, you was taking me on the roller coaster. I'm like, what? And then you're like, no, they said false one. I'm like, wait, hold on, bro.
No, literally every single time they would test me for something, it would come out positive, and then I'd retest to get, like, a second opinion, or to to confirm the diagnosis, and it was just negative. So I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? Like, that in itself was stressful. I lost relationships that friendship relationships during that time, as well, to someone that was close and dear to me, being with everything that was going on, but still not clicking that God had anything to do with this, or that
or
the
to,
reason,
like,
to turn to him, to figure out what's going on, because I was just living in just a singular mindset, just moving, not thinking about the effects of anything, not even thinking that, turning to God was an outlet. I wasn't even thinking not turning it to him was not an outlet. It wasn't a thought. Yeah. So around June, I had to stop working because I just, like, I couldn't figure out what's going on with me. I was in the hospital every week, in the ER. It was just terrible experience after terrible experience. Forced me to stop working. And from there, it's like my mom, even you, like, tried talking to me and, figuring out what was going on. And I just kept pushing away. And, that was me running. I ran to this job thinking that it would be better for me and where I wanted to go, not realizing that it probably wasn't, or maybe I was meant to be there for a purpose that I just didn't see. Either way, I was running till I stopped running because I felt like I was running in circles. So I just try to hide. In that hiding is where I found my sickness started coming, because it's like I was running. I had to stop running because there was nowhere else for me to run. And then I just started hiding.
Were you just running was there something specific you were running from besides God, or Were you just running in general?
I
Because
wasn't
you didn't
even
want to deal
running
with
from
anything?
God. I was running from the situation that I was in.
Okay.
I was running from the environment that I was in that was no longer healthy for me. I was running.
Oh, and not knowing what to do about it.
Not
and
knowing
stuff.
what to do about it. I was running from people that were around me, that were, whether they were trying to help me or not trying to help me, I was still running. Then when I got sick is when I was just like, it didn't click. I got sick, and it still didn't click to me to turn to God. And that's when you came in and my mom came in, and they were like you guys were trying to tell me like I need to pray, I need to give it to God. And, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Well, let me tell you, like back, what year was that? 2019, 2020? That's how you know it was God, because my relationship with God, as you know, at that time wasn't necessarily the strongest. So for me to come to you and be like, you need to pray instead, that was God, period. Like,
I didn't want to hear it. Like, I don't know why I didn't want to hear it. It's not like there was no intention behind it. And I don't know, one day maybe he might, might come back to it and, reveal something that I'm still missing out of that situation. But it still didn't make sense to me. And at that time, too, COVID happened, so people were already losing their jobs and not being able to work. Luckily for me, like even through all that and not even turning to God, like still he had my back, because I had went on medical disability, which had provided me the funds that I needed to continue to be able to support myself while I was sick at the time.
And you were able to leave that environment that you weren't supposed to be in.
But I still didn't accept it, that I wasn't supposed to be in there. I was blaming everything and everyone around me at the time. To that, like we're now nearing the end of 2020, entering into 2021. I thought I started feeling better, but I still was kind of depressed and, kind of covering and hiding those thoughts and feelings that I was feeling at. So even through this sickness, I couldn't figure anything out. I just was going through the motion. I kind of came numb to it. And I'm like, accepted, like, this is just my life now. I'm just going to be sick and no one's going to know what's wrong with me. We're just going to keep treating the symptoms and not finding the actual root of the problem. So in 2021, I had found out that I had gotten pregnant at the time. And I wasn't trying or anything. It just kind of happened. And what's crazy, though, is, like, in my mind, I still question it, because it's just, like, as a woman, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
you said, like, you weren't trying not to either, so.
No, but I was very, careful. No. I knew that
Something was.
But because I know how responsible I am, and I'm very in tune with my body to know when something is off. That's why I'm trying to tell you, like, I really didn't understand how it happened. Like, not 2 + 2 = 4 kind of situation. It's like, no, the math adds up, but it's still kind of,
what is it?
So
math ain't mathin'.
It wasn't math in that day. So now I got pregnant, and I was kind of depressed about it. I didn't really have the best reaction from people when they found out that I was pregnant. It was hard for me. I wasn't in the best space, and my relationship as well too. So it was not the easiest pregnancy ever. It's not how I wanted to find out that I was having a baby coming into this world. But I accepted it, and I just kind of feel like I was going through the motions, though. Like, I was never really truly in the right state of mind to process everything that was happening to me. Fast forwarding a little bit more to now, we are in June of 2021, and it was just a normal day for me, and I just started feeling pain. in my chest, on my side, and I was just like, because I know my body so well. That morning I had went to physical therapy, and that afternoon, like, I don't know what happened. Like, I was feeling fine until I wasn't, and I had told my partner that I wasn't feeling well and that I needed to go to the hospital. And we get there, and so much was happening. Like, it's a lot to digest still. But I really, like, when people say that the healthcare system does not care about people, like, I really got a taste of it that day. Yeah. So I really got a taste of it that day. And what blew my mind was the vast difference that my partner was treated just by the difference in how he dressed the next day coming into the hospital.
Yeah, and he kind of know, because he works in a hospital, so he kind of knew, like, okay, let me not pull rank, but like,
And I think that's crazy how they treat you completely different just based off of that. I mean, I don't think it's right. I mean, I'm not saying that they're wrong either, but it's not right.
But it's, if you're in the healthcare industry, isn't your goal to help? You know what I mean? Help.
But I feel like they become numb to situations because people take advantage of it. But it's like, the boy who cried wolf. Just because someone cried wolf doesn't mean that when it actually happens, that happens. Like, you just ignore it because everyone else before him was crying wolf about it.
Yeah, I feel like if you grow numb in those situations, you should probably leave the healthcare industry. So.
Yeah, so that day I wasn't taken seriously. The pain that I was going through was so real, but obviously it was really busy in the hospital that day, but I do not feel like for any reason that I should have been ignored the way that I was ignored. And they didn't do proper procedures and protocol to ensure that I was safe and my baby was safe. At the time I was 21 weeks pregnant. So I guess I didn't find out till afterwards. I guess after you reach a certain amount of weeks in your pregnancy, there, by law, the ER is required to send you up to labor and delivery, for them to check you out and to monitor the baby inside of you. And I didn't know that at the time. They kept telling me that the baby was fine and nothing was wrong with the baby and that it was me. And it was just so crazy because it was a Thursday. That it was Thursday night. That Friday morning at like 5 a.m. is when they finally admitted me into one of the rooms upstairs. Still not in the labor delivery room, just a regular general room in the hospital. And it was on Sunday, the 21st, when they finally a doctor came to see me and told me that my pregnancy was at risk and that they needed to, take out the baby immediately because the baby was toxic to myself and in itself as well too, which was completely like it's like your heart. My heart stopped because I'm like, what do you mean? Like, for days you guys have been telling me that everything is fine, and and
they've been giving you all this medicine. I was like, are you sure it's safe?
And
for
I
the
kept
baby?
asking, like, is it cool for the baby? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. It's not going to affect the baby at all. And then finally, and then the way that, and I understand now that the way the doctor came in, his priority was, I need to save this patient because someone else failed at their job, and now it's time for me to make sure that this patient doesn't die and their baby doesn't die as well too. But there was no way to, according to them, for them to save my baby at that stage that the baby was in, because the lungs weren't developed enough, the skin wasn't developed enough. Had I been able to carry for a couple more weeks, then the baby would have been in the hospital for some time, but it would have been a viable baby to live with no guarantees that they wouldn't have any deficits, but at the time it would be a baby. Yeah.
And I remember before then they were telling you it was something like with your gallbladder.
Yeah.
Like it was something completely different. So that's why they were pumping all this stuff in you. And
morphine.
Right, but not even more, just other medicines too. And then they're like, oh, the baby's toxic. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all did it.
So yeah, so come to figure out, like, they should have put me on steroids
And send you to maternity immediately.
immediately to be monitored and everything. I just know for me at the time, like, I froze because I didn't know what to do or say. I didn't have the option of going and finding a second opinion. I didn't have the option. Like, everything was so time consuming, and they kept telling me, like, no, your life is at danger at this point. And you have that conversation with your partner. I mean, I should feel like everybody should have that conversation where it's like, if this were to happen, what do we want to happen? In the right state of mind, I'm like, no, you save me, because we can always have another baby. At that point, I was just like, no, you save this baby. I don't care what happens.
It's so funny. Like, I've always thought, like, I would be like, no, save the baby. But I've heard different people's, like, argument. And I'm like, okay. But
you won't know until you're put in the situation. Yeah. And I don't really care what anybody says. Like, everyone has an opinion. Obviously, you're always gonna have an opinion when you're not the one in the moment dealing with the situation. And I'd never judge a woman or anybody for a decision that they make in the moment with all the emotions that you're going through. But yeah, no, I literally told him, I'm like, no, you save the baby. And I just didn't care what happened to me. But like, luckily my partner was there, so he was just like, no, you save her. I mean, any normal doctor would probably save me first, because the baby wasn't living long enough to make that judgment call to as sad as it may sound, to save the baby over the mother at that time. But no, it was a full traumatic experience for me. And even afterwards, like, I think the realest moment for me that day was when I was about to go into surgery to deliver the baby via C-section. And my partner was just like, can we have a moment? Like, I've never seen someone in so much pain in my life until, like, that day, which have to experience and share a similar pain with them. And I literally cried and prayed, but again, it's still not clicking to me what I'm praying, or that I should be turning to God. It was just something that I just programmed to do whenever in your situation. The first thing you're supposed to do is pray. So that was the thought process then, because I was just like, man, what if I don't make it off this table? Like, I was so scared, like, and I was so alone. It was, I didn't have family around me, like, and it was COVID too, so you really couldn't have anybody in the hospital as well too. So to go through all of that and just be so alone, I remember inside of the operating room, I just kept shaking. I just couldn't stop shaking. When they put the epidural in my back, they were like, you have to stay still. Like, I just couldn't stop crying. Like, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, it was hard. It was really hard. And then the room is cold. So you're just like feeling your emotions, and that's why you feel like you're alone. It's in a cold, dark place, Then I remember laying down and then pulling the baby out of me, and my partner leaving to go to hold the baby, because the doctor had asked, like, do you want to hold the baby until she passes, because she was born alive. So he didn't want to leave me, but I had told him to go because I just didn't want her to not be with one of her parents, and I couldn't do it because I was laying down being so I sent him to go hold her. And I don't really remember what happened after then, because I just remembered I started hyperventilating, and they had to put me to sleep. And when I woke up from the sleep, that's when she took her last breath. So for me, that kind of, like, it meant a lot, and it symbolized a lot.
She waited for you to wake up.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was I had a difficult time holding her, because it's not something that I would ever want or wish anyone to go through. And from there, I was in the room, and the worst part about it is like they had me upstairs with all the other moms who had already delivered. So like at night I'm going to sleep and I can hear to the left of me, to the right of me, babies crying, moms being frustrated with the babies constantly crying, and I just have to sit there and just like take it, you know. And they told me that they couldn't move me because they didn't have any available rooms to put me in. It kind of just didn't make any sense to me. That's what you're saying. But no, that was like, yeah, so that was a loss that I went through. And from there, that's when, after that loss is when I finally saw, I'm like, you know what, like, it got to the point where I'm like, I have nowhere else to go, God. Right. So I like literally fell on my knees and I'm like, here.
Yeah. And I feel like even at that time, you didn't necessarily have time to process the loss because you were in the hospital for 10 days, like after, getting things for yourself because you almost passed as well. Yeah. And so it's like while you were there, you didn't have time to process what kind of just happened because now, you were fighting for your life. And I think that also made it harder because when you did, when you were cleared to go home, it was kind of like you had kind of not pushed it to the back of your head, but kind of like numbed yourself to it so that you could deal with other things. And that didn't help the process. So, yeah, I can't even imagine. Like a lot of us, we just didn't know what to do
without her. It was a crazy feeling.
Yeah, and I know you said you fell to your knees and called out to God. Was that in the hospital right when you left, or
no? It took some days. It took some days for it to process. I think it happened for me after the funeral, because everything else was just going wrong. Yeah. So I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do nothing for myself. Like, like it was hard. So I cried every day, like, yeah, I cried every day. So, that's when I finally figured out I just needed to surrender and give it to God. And that's where my, I guess, rebirth into my spiritual journey, that's where it started. And that's the root, the why, of why I had to go back. I didn't have a choice. Yeah. When I say I didn't have a choice, it's not even like I wanted any other choice. I knew that's where I needed to go. And I know for months, for years, he was trying to get me to come home. And I ran, I hid, I got sick. And he was just like, and for me, I truly believe like the way that he felt like he needed to call me home was through the experience that I went through.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's beautiful that now where you're at, you're able to even look at that situation, as traumatic as it was, and see, I don't want to say the purpose in it, but kind of like see the glory of God through it and kind of see the light in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, purpose probably wouldn't be the word that I used either, but it is, since I can't find any other words to describe it at this moment, but it is sort of like the purpose of why, why I went through what I went through. Everyone may have their own interpretation, but this is my story, I'm not really big on like energy or numbers and stuff like that, but what sticks to me the most is my daughter now has the same due date that she was supposed to be born on. And because it was so close into the pregnancy, because I literally got pregnant less than a year later, it just felt like God put her spirit into this new baby that that I have now, because I find moments where I see her like looking up at, at just space, and it's like, I feel like there's a connection there. It's really hard to explain, but
No, I know what you mean. And it's not like, because I remember when you were first explaining it, I was like, well, it's not reincarnation. You were like, no, it's not that. It's just like, I think it's the restoration and part of the healing that God kind of put some like little nuggets. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, because my first pregnancy, my due date was November 8th, I think it was. Destiny, who's my baby now, she was originally supposed to be born on November 8th, but because I had to have a C-section, she was born like 2 or 3 weeks earlier. I was about
to say, you don't know the day.
No, I was trying to figure out how many weeks it was, but 2-3 weeks before that. So it just, the way it just aligns itself. Like, to me, it's nothing. No, it's okay. To me, it's nothing but God who's shown me this. And and even the craziest part about it is in October of 2021, I know that someone that went through a loss as well too, and it was at the same time. Remember that day I called you and I told you like I had a dream that God told me exactly when I was gonna have another baby.
Yeah, and you like freaked out.
And I like freaked out. And it was crazy when I called you again to tell you that I was pregnant. It was exactly the time that he had told me, he had shown me that I was going to be pregnant again. And
the restoration and the he will give you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it feels good to know that he's there.
He cares,
yeah. And like, some people might look at this and be like, why did God do this to you? Or why did he put you through this and X, Y, and Z? And those might have been the same questions that I may have had back then too. But when I take a step back and just look at the whole picture, like, I can't do nothing but thank God.
Yeah, because I know there's people who will probably be like, well, as like, oh, you're not married or whatever. But even still, God blesses in situations. You know what I'm saying? Like, to discount a move of God because of imperfections or you know what I'm saying? Or of, not mistake, but like things that humans do.
Yeah.
That's unfair to God,
Yeah, and what's crazy is that everyone has their own stories. And, Destiny's dad and I, we are in union as one. It's just not something that we talk about or share with other people. But I could argue the point if people tried me. If people tried me, like, okay, everyone has their own story, and I just don't feel like, people need validation. I don't need validation, not anymore, because I've already received everything that I needed from God. He's shown me and spoken it to me, and her dad and I are on one page. We see things, we talk about things and plan things the way that we want it to happen, and the way that we bring it to God to make sure that God's in the midst of it as well too.
Yeah. So I think it was especially like hearing it's funny hearing it, knowing like how it happened then, and it's just like looking back, it's like, wow, that really was like a traumatic experience for everybody, because it's like nobody really knows what to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do we do at that time? But it's beautiful to see that God helped you through, because I think that he also had it to the point where, not that you couldn't lean on the people around you, but it was to the point we were all dealing with stuff too, and we didn't necessarily know how to give you what you needed at that time. So you literally had no choice but to lean on. Like, we could try to help you as much as we could, but it wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't enough because we weren't meant to help you and comfort you in that way, because you needed to turn to him, because that's what he wanted. So what I ask you is, when it comes to like feeling hopeless and like illnesses and loss and situations where you feel like you all you can do is run, but running isn't doing anything for you, or being in a situation where you feel like you're in over your head or you're overwhelmed, like where you're in a place you feel like you shouldn't be, but you also don't know how to leave or anything like that. Or, you said that you kind of were depressed even when you were pregnant, but then when you lost her, you still felt how. I know that there's people who are dealing with that, maybe not all of it, but in some aspect, in some way, shape, or form. So I wanted to ask you, what would you say to them? Like, what helped you through, or if what you know now, if you went through it now, what would help you through it, and kind of give you that comfort and strength to push through?
You know, that's really a good question, because even now, looking back at it, and if I were in the place that I were in now, then literally it's different for everyone, but for me, falling on my knees would be the only thing that I could tell anyone, because there's not anyone around you, even if they share experience, who can actually pick you up when you go through something of that sort, of any kind of loss. I don't compare any loss to another. I think a loss is a loss. And for me, some people tell me, well, you didn't really meet her, so your loss is a little bit different from my loss. But I felt her. I carried her, like she moved in my stomach. So it was still a hard loss. So for me, like I said, I just would tell people to go on your knees and pray, call for God. Even if you don't know what to say, just call for him, and he'll do the rest. That's all he needs you to do, is just call on to him. And from there, it gets easier, not in the sense of the pain going away, but I wake up every day because I know I have someone there to, to call to talk to vent to pray to, and who provides me the answers that I need. So that's what works for me. I know in the Bible there was a story where there was a woman who, I don't know, was it leprosy, or she had some kind of blood issue.
Oh, she was bleeding for years, and she pushed through.
And she pushed through the crowd, and it was in Mark 5:20 something, 25 to like 29.
I'll find it. Yeah.
So she didn't even call to God. She just went, and she just touched
the hem of his garment.
Yeah, his clothing. And the crazy part about that story is, how did God know? You know what I'm saying?
I was gonna say, a lot of people focus on the healing part,
yeah,
but
that's the part people don't ask the right questions for.
It's like he noticed. It's like he noticed me. Yeah, he noticed.
Because one of
I was gonna
I was
say,
waiting for you to come home.
yeah, and a lot of people, I've had conversations with people who, they're not necessarily believers or they're kind of against it or whatever. They might have grew up in the church, but they felt something happened in their life where they felt like God wasn't there, He wasn't listening, or anything like that. And I get it. We've all been there. Like, even as believers, like, we have those moments, but we know, you know what I mean? Like, He's still there. He's there. He hears you. Just lean on Him, and he really does love us. Like, and it's a love that we can't necessarily fathom. But I think that a lot of people who have dealt with tragedy or loss, anything, any hardship, at some point has felt God, like, God, where are you? But when you're on the other side of it, you see exactly where He was in a lot of those situations. And I think knowing that God is a comforter is a part that a lot of people overlook about His character. And it really does carry us through. I don't know if you've ever seen that picture of, like, or it's like a saying or something, how there's like two people's footprints in the sand and then it turns into one. And then I've heard people say, like, oh yeah, because He left. No, it was because He carried you through it, because you couldn't carry yourself. You weren't meant to. We shouldn't have to carry, you know what I mean, certain burdens. And Him being a comforter, he's a father. And I think getting that realization and understanding, no matter what your relationship with the Father, with your Father is, not you specifically, you know what I mean? I mean, with your Father is, God is a good Father. So the humanness, the imperfections that dads and human fathers, He doesn't have those imperfections. He cares about you. You are His child. Like, you are His child. Like, I don't know how else to really describe it, but I think it's really important how you were saying He was always there. He's always here. He's never going to leave. You might feel like, oh my gosh, this is too heavy. He didn't leave. He's there. He's waiting for you, you know?
I think I wrote this down because it's a question that I feel like we all should just ask ourselves. In James 5:13, it says, is anyone among you suffering? And he asks that question, and then he answers it by telling you, then he must pray. And then he also asks, is anyone joyful? And in that response as well, too, he tells you, then you sing praises and you continue to pray. So whether you are at a sad point in your life or the happiest point in your life because He's blessed you so much, it doesn't matter what it is. You pray. Yeah. You turn to prayer for everything because you need that prayer to feed you. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes the same way you wake up every morning, and whether you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, whatever your morning routine is, it's no different from someone like you and I who wake up and we just go on our knees and pray as a part of that morning routine, because the same way people feel like I need coffee in order to get my day started, I need prayer in order to get my day started. I need God in order to get my, you know what I'm saying, to get my day started, because my day won't continue to go without me feeling like He's there with me, even though I know if I miss a prayer one morning, like, He's still there. But I feel better. I feel that my day is, no matter what happens through that day, I know that I started at the feet of God. In any direction my day goes from there, I can handle it because He's there with me. So my coffee is my prayer.
Yeah, I've had to try to spend time with God before I even pick up my phone, because I had to get to the point where I was like, the first thing you do is, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? I've tried to get into the habit where it's like, no, those things can wait. I need to right now. I need to talk to God. I need to, and they were. The thing is that you don't know what your day holds. We're supposed to ask for strength every day, strength enough to get us through. We don't know what kind of strength that we need for this day. Only He does, because He knows what's going to happen in your day. You could think like, oh, I'm fine, and then you have the worst day. But you know what I'm saying? You didn't go back to the source to get filled up, because a lot of people are pouring from an empty cup. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you have to let God fill you up. That's what makes you feel drained. That's what, if you're not full and you're not getting filled up, then are you really pouring out? Are you really filling people up with valuable things while not hurting yourself? Like, you're hurting yourself when you don't. You know what I'm saying? You have to go back to it's like when your phone dies. You can't just see oh, my phone's dead, I'm still going to be, what are you going to do? You're not going to use it. You have to plug it back in to the source of power, the source of energy, the source of the thing that gives your phone strength. You have to plug back into it. So I think it's really valuable that to always pray, because that's literally what, and I think a lot of people think prayer is a lot more structural than it is. I mean, there is a structure to prayer, but you can have a conversation with God. I've had just conversations like, look, God, like, look, let me tell you what happened today. He knows, but He wants to talk to you. He wants to hear from you. It's.
Yeah, through this healing process, God, He got me through it. I can't say it is going to be the same for everyone, because everyone goes through. But what I can say is, and something else that I wanted to point out is, negative thoughts, pain, fear, they're only temporary. You find favor when the afterthoughts, when you've, realize that those moments were only weakness and they're not of God. Everyone as a human, we go through the process of feeling negative thoughts. But going back to that Psalms verse, another one that I wanted to share was, he says, right after Psalms 32, he says, "O Lord, my God, I cried to you for help, and you have healed me," which was the verse that I was speaking on earlier. But after that, two verses down in Psalms 35, he says, "For his anger is but for a moment, his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may endure for a night, but a shout of joy comes in the morning." So those moments that you feel, those negative thoughts, the pain, the hurt of the trauma that you're going through, just know that they're only moments. Nothing can take away those pains, but God can heal you, to accept what has happened and to move forward, and not to forget, because there's no such thing as forgetting. It's just accepting that this trauma, this pain has happened, and I'm going to carry you forward. Yeah, and to live life as well too. I thank God every day for the blessing that we have. Destiny brings so much joy to not only us, but to everyone else, around her. She just has this light in her that every time I look at her, I just say, God, like, what did I do?
I mean, she still got a little attitude, but
what did I do to deserve her? Because she's heaven sent. There's no way for me to describe it. The I guess, the lack for better words, the traumas that a lot of new moms tell you that they go through in the first couple weeks and months of a newborn. I didn't have to go through that. I'm blessed enough to have had my mother here when she was born, and I also had my mother-in-law here as well too when she was born. But my mom stayed for some time to help me out. And I found it like after 2 weeks of her being home, she had her own schedule. She slept through the night. She didn't want to be bothered to, to when she woke up to feed, then she fed. But I didn't have the struggles that a lot of new moms had. And I thank God for that, because only God would be the reason why I did not go through some of those hardships. My postpartum, was here and there like any new mom goes to. So I don't think there's a way of not going through that. But my faith, like I always like to say, kept me grounded. And my faith as well too has shown me that with him I can't fail. With him, through any trauma, there's always going to be a blessing for me to receive from him. And there's an explanation for everything. Whether you know it or not, there's an explanation for everything. And I think going through what I went through has shown me so much. I could never go back.
Trauma doesn't define you.
It does not.
Does not define your future.
It does not.
The rest of your life. Just because you had that kind of trauma does not mean the rest of your life is going to be trauma filled. You can come out. And I thank God every day. He is my source of everything, and I think by now people have finally realized that Jeremiah 29:11 is it's kind of just like everything we talk about just stems and roots from there, because his plan is like no other. Like, to sit there and try to make plans and try to tell God what you're about to do and how things is about to go all the time, like all the time. But no, like, when you finally accept that scripture, I think it's my favorite scripture in the Bible, because when you fully process and accept what it truly means when he says, "For I know the plans that I have for you," it is so crazy, because it's at that point you surrender to God, and it's literally a burden that's been lifted off your shoulders. And I challenge anyone who says that once they truly surrender to God, that the burden of weight has not been lifted off their shoulder. Because if it's still there, it means you haven't truly surrendered it all to him. Yes, you will have your moments where you fall back. You're human. God expects that. But in those moments is when you revert back to that scripture, to any scripture, but specifically that scripture, because he says, "For I know the plans that I have for you." He knows and Gabriel talked about this. It's not our right to know. We're not privileged to know those plans, and when he's ready to reveal them, he will. So for anyone out there who's going through something, who's struggling through something, go fall on your knees and pray. Fall on your knees and pray, because it is through prayer that you'll truly see God reveal himself in a way that it might not even been the way that you wanted him to reveal yourselves, but you'll find answers in that reveal, because it's what he knows you need at the time. Because it also says that he doesn't give you more than you can handle. That's because he knows when to reveal his plans, his whatever it is to you, because he knows how much you can handle. That's why he can say that the Bible says that he never gives you more than you can handle. It's true. It's really true. And I know some people go back and forth with it because of different experiences. They start to question God, and I did too for a moment. But when I finally open my heart and open my mind to accept what has happened to me and why it happened the way that it happened, I found favor. I got a blessing from God, and it didn't take years for it to come. Like, he gave me favor when I surrendered to him.
And I think that's like the greatest feeling ever. And I would literally, show or challenge anyone to try it the way that it happened for me, and for them to tell me that you didn't receive his favor.
And we're not saying as soon as you surrender, you're going to get a blessing. No.
Because it didn't happen
Yeah.
that way,
You might get a blessing of peace. You might get a blessing of joy. You might get a blessing.
Peace happened instantly. The same way that woman touched, his garment, that and received healing, is the same way when I finally surrendered and fell on my knees and say, I am yours. Here's my life. I give it to you because I have nowhere else to turn but to you, Lord, is really when I found immediately that peace from him.
It's a blessing that you need, and not necessarily that you think that you might get. Right. It's a blessing that you need, and you might not even know you need it.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy about that.
Yeah. And I think that's very good to challenge. We challenge you guys. Try God. Try him at his word. Try him at his word. And I promise you, his word will never fade away. He said, the heavens and the earth may fall away, but my word, his word will never fall away. His word will never be done with. His word will never return back void. So trust him at his word. Trust him at who he is. Trust him at his character. And you will get healing. Yeah. So that was a beautiful story and testimony. And I know you really have been waiting to share. So I'm glad that you chose to do so on our platform. And I know I'm saying it like I'm glad that you guys were able to join us this week. As you know, we have a lot of other episodes in the chamber just waiting. So glad that you guys joined us. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. How's our Instagram? Follow us on Instagram. That's where any updates, anything, even we don't post stuff about our lives, but
no, but I do want to say that if anyone that out here listening has a healing story that they want to share with us, or a testimony, or even letting us know what their healing process was,
or asking questions about
my story, I'd be more than happy to share if you have questions for me, and the story that I just shared,
or even questions how to we don't have all the answers, but on how to get through something that they're going through. Feel free to comment. You can comment under this video. You can comment on Instagram. You can DM us. You can message us on Twitter. You can
way you want to reach out to us,
whatever it is. We're on all platforms. We're on TikTok too. So any social media that you have, feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to help you, or answer, or talk to you, or have a conversation, or if you just want to say hello, just say hello.
So until next time, guys, we'll can't wait to see you.
All right. Bye.
Putting in work. I'm putting in work. I answer the call. They ask why I do it. Well, why do I do it? It really ain't hard. I do it for God. Just watch as I do. I do it for God. I do what I do. I do it for God. You know he the truth. I do it for God.